I can't believe we've had four podcasts in a row, and I have not been the last one into the chat room any of those four times.
I was in the room early. I just was in the historian's room.
Yeah, you were in the wrong room.
Genuinely, I've been waiting in there for 10 minutes waiting for you guys to show up.
And genuinely, I was waiting in this brand new one for about 20 minutes waiting for you guys to show up.
It evens out from the last three podcasts.
Welcome to the first episode of the Mol België Season 13 recaps from Reality TV Warriors. My name is Michael Harmstone, and joining me as always is the Canadian who might be biologically 57, but he feels 38 internally, Logan Saunders.
Good afternoon.
And the guy who can hook you up with some muscle relaxants without the need for a visit to Thai A&E, David Bindley.
Good morning. I thought that was going to be my intro.
Yeah, originally the old one was your intro, but I felt muscle relaxants was way more your thing.
Okay.
I couldn't really tie the muscle relaxants to Logan's Mucky videos, otherwise I probably would have done.
Yeah.
I tried.
And there's your first bingo square of the season, Fuzzy.
Yeah, I'm worried that Fuzzy's going to get bingo this week because I think the banner's fairly obvious. You know what it is, Bindles, but Logan doesn't yet. But you can probably guess, let's be honest, it's a fairly obvious one. And I feel like some of the things this week are going to very much hit the sort of things that she picks, unfortunately. I'm almost certain that she will have a square saying Gilles shows off by reciting the entire Thai name of Bangkok. Which, again, I know you listen to these podcasts, Gilles. That was unnecessary, but hilarious.
I wonder how long he practiced it.
A while, I suspect, because he only had one chance on that. Have you had a good couple of weeks? I don't think it was your birthday last time we recorded officially, Bindles, so did you have a nice birthday?
I did absolutely nothing.
Excellent. Did you have a nice birthday, Saunders?
From 8 months ago?
Yeah. I'm letting you feel included.
It was okay from what I remember. It was all right.
Good, I'm glad.
I went to the beach.
Yeah.
What about you, Michael?
I did, thank you. We are recording this the evening after my birthday, obviously. Annoyingly, Fuzzy will definitely put that on the bingo card, so I can't really avoid it. But yeah, it was a nice birthday to have. Off this entire week, maybe slightly because I know this episode's going to be a long one that I've got to edit. And we celebrated by recording an episode of Historians last night.
Yep. I mean, not to spoil that much, but this episode was better.
Yes, yeah, this episode was much better than the one we had to talk about in Historians last night. And you guys been up to anything? Anything interesting the past couple of weeks?
I went to New Orleans.
Yeah, didn't you come back from New Orleans last time we spoke there, Saunders? You were here for the reunion, though, weren't you?
Yeah, so what was that? I was gone from March 1st to the 8th. Yeah, the 8th is when I got back. So I guess, yeah, just over 2 weeks. Yeah, I had to make up. I had to work as much as I could the past couple weeks to make up for how much money I spent in New Orleans.
Yeah, especially going for Mardi Gras, which, as I said in the reunion episode, was dumb.
Well, they really wanted to go specifically during that time, so all the hotel prices were at least double, even closer to triple than the rates they normally are.
And on the plus side, you've decided your rough route for Europe in May, haven't you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I was just thinking about that today, where I think I know what I'm doing. Because I have a brother who you met him once, Michael. He lives in Toronto now, or just outside of Toronto. So now, whenever I go to Europe, I don't like going to all the way to Europe in a single day, just because of the extended layovers to get there compared to going to Asia. Because going from British Columbia to Asia is just you go to Vancouver, you hop on a plane, and you can get to Japan. And then I usually hang out in Japan for a bit. But with Europe, it's typically Kelowna to Vancouver or Calgary, and then to maybe even somewhere else within Canada, and then to London, and then London to wherever my first destination is. So it ends up being a lot of layovers and just really exhausting by the end of it. So I tend to split it up now. So I'm seeing my brother in Toronto to split that up. Then I'm hanging out in the UK for a few days, and then going to Belgium, and then I'm probably going to go to Sardinia after that in Italy, and then go to Moldova, then Norway, then Iceland, and then back home. I had Hungary in there, but I have a feeling I probably won't be going to Hungary because I really wanted to see Budapest. But it's not just because of the unrest that's going on there right now. I'm just not going to Europe for a super long time this time. It'll probably be a little over 3 weeks or so that I'm in Europe, so I'm trying not to stretch myself too thin.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of the people who are causing unrest in Hungary did just leave the other day.
Yeah. A lot of them have fans who just like to try and get people fired.
Yeah.
The major thing, I guess, that's happened in the 2 weeks that we haven't done a live episode as well is that as I was editing the reunion episode, I heard some kind of beeping outside of my office window, and I looked out of the window to see that my neighbours were having their garden done.
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, that's fine, I guess. I'm a little bit annoyed that they haven't warned me about it because obviously it affects me when I share a drive with them. And I got a knock on the door lunchtime-ish, and they said, "Do you mind moving your car for 10 minutes while we just get some soil delivered to your next door neighbours? Don't worry, it'll be delivered in bags and everything, and we'll just hawk it over their fence. It's fine." And then, sort of 5 or 10 minutes later, I looked out my window. I'm just going to try and find the picture. There it is. So I've just sent you a picture on Facebook. This was my view out of my office window 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh my god.
5 or 10 minutes after I'd moved my car for these bastards. And I'm not going to release this picture because it maybe doxes me slightly about where I live. But what Logan and Bindles can currently see is 6 tons of soil dumped onto my drive, loose.
Michael knows because he counted it individually.
Well, it was 6 1-ton bags, that's how I know.
I don't see any bags.
Yeah, there weren't any bags in that picture, but they had been delivered in bags, and the absolute arsehole who was driving the truck that they came on emptied it out loose and then dump trucked it onto my drive, basically.
Is it all cleaned up?
Well, me being mild-mannered and accepting of these things, I gave it about 5 or 10 minutes and went out to have a perfectly calm and reasonable word with the workman, namely me very audibly on next door's camera saying, "What the fuck?" And they said, "Don't worry, we'll clean it up and make sure to power wash your drive." And they did, to their credit. But there's a certain bit of hilarity in looking out of my window and visibly seeing a mountain of dirt where my car should be.
Can you move your car so
Yeah, can you move
we
your
can
car for 10 minutes so we can get some soil delivered to your next door neighbour? And yeah, they got soil delivered to the next door neighbour, just not in the form they were expecting.
Wow, that is a brilliant troll on their part.
Yeah, it wasn't the workman's fault, luckily. The delivery driver was being an arsehole because when I reversed my car off my drive, he moved just enough so I could get past, and it was a big ass truck. I was not taking any chances. He had to move for me. I made him move further before I reversed my car out properly. But on the plus side, when that sort of thing happens, my first thought is usually, quick, note this down so I could talk about it on the podcast because it'll make you guys laugh. It was like something out of a sitcom. And 2 final things to talk about from my preamble before we actually get into the season proper. Have you guys been watching Last One Laughing on Amazon Prime, the UK version?
No.
Nope.
It's quite
Didn't
good.
even watch our version.
The Australian one was worse. The Canadian one was very good. The UK one's very, very good so far. We've had like half of the episodes so far, maybe 2/3 of them. But I fear we're being pandered to again.
She gone.
Yes, I was watching episode 3 last week, and we seem to be being pandered to again because Jimmy Carr quite audibly said, "Oh, she gone." Not even she's gone, she gone. And on a British TV note, just to get slightly less humorous, obviously Jeopardy UK did start again last week.
That's a shame.
It is a shame for me because I'm not on it. The premiere was filmed directly after the run through that I did, and I did see all 3 of those players walk into the studio and wish them good luck. But it did make me realise something, which is that I am still not over not getting on that show, and it's making me sad to watch it. So I've actually had to stop watching Jeopardy UK because I was sat there last Tuesday just thinking, this is just making me really sad. This should have been me.
Oh no, they've lost a quarter of their audience.
I know. It's surging to 600,000 people or whatever it was who watched it yesterday. But yeah, it just... I didn't actually realise how sad it was going to make me feel, but it just made me feel sad to keep watching it, so I've actually had to stop. Still watching the US one. The US one's absolutely fine. It's specifically the UK one's making me sad. Anyway, back to humour. First question. What do we think of Thailand as a location after it was announced?
Well, I lived there, so
I think when it was announced, I sort of, expected the stereotypical stuff that, Amazing Race always does. Like, Bangkok is chaotic and all that, like, Bangkok, Phuket, maybe Chiang Mai if we're lucky. But then sort of seeing this episode, I think they're going to go a more interesting way with it, which is really, really good.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting that we did talk at length to Gilles last year about whether season 13 would be kind of luck-based, because that's the sort of anchor that they love to have on the show, and it seems that they blatantly already had that in mind.
I think Vidum was anchor based this season.
Yes, Saunders. But the concept of luck and misfortune, I guess, in a Mole season is absolutely right for a version like België. When they announced that it was more going to be luck based or misfortune based, that's when I started getting excited. I think about the concept of Thailand.
Do you think it's luck, or are they sort of leaning into the Thailand Buddhism sort of thing and doing karma? Because karma did get mentioned in this episode.
It did. Pedro did mention it. I think it is more unlucky season 13 and misfortune and evil's on its way and all that sort of stuff. Because they also, in the intro bit of this episode, did specifically highlight that it was 13th season. So I think it's more unlucky 13 than karma and Buddhism again. Because, as we well know, there would have been a conversation, presumably, especially with the new Vidum showrunner, about not overlapping locations, not overlapping themes. I think maybe they had a conversation and said, we're not going to go for Buddhism and karma, so if you want to, have at it. That would be my read on the situation.
Although it is interesting that both shows had their first executions on top of a helipad in the middle of the capital then.
Yeah, very true.
And both being non-eliminations.
Thailand as a location obviously hasn't been visited in a while on Mole. So it's nice to see it. Obviously, België going back to Southeast Asia is always great fun because they have a bit more of a budget to do that when it's so cheap. But I think it's going to be an interesting season from what we've seen so far.
Yeah, like I will say, I think Thailand is a lot more interesting than just doing like Southern Europe again. Because we had Greece, we had Sicily, we had Canary Islands, which are not quite Southern Europe, but basically the same sort of, landscape and culture and that sort of thing. I think this is going to be more interesting than that, just from like the novelty side of things. Like a little bit like Arizona, sort of felt fresh because they hadn't really done anything in that sort of landscape before.
Yeah, like the Vietnam season is already what would that be? 6 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it make you feel old, Saunders? That was our first finale.
Yeah, there's been a lot of things lately, especially like podcasting with Justin on Sunday, and then realizing, Justin and I have known each other for over a decade now.
Yep. And realizing as you did that actually it's what 9 years, was it, since season 29?
Well, 8 years. 8 years since season 29.
Yeah, it's 2017. We went to Dublin, wasn't it? So yeah, 8 years since season 29 when we were in Dublin and the cast got released.
Yeah.
Damn. And talking of feeling old, the average age of this season is 35.7 compared to 38.3 for Argentina, 33.4 for South Africa, 37.7 for Mexico, 35.1 for Vietnam, 34.6 for Greece, 31.9 and 33.3 for Germany, 34.6 and 34.3 for Canary Islands, 33.4 and 33.6 for Arizona, and 35.8 for Sicily. So it's actually only 0.1 lower than Sicily.
They don't look a day over 35.6.
Nope, and I'll be perfectly honest, a lot of that average age is dragged up by the wonderful Hilde.
I love her so much.
I will say this now. If Hilde is the mole this season, then they need to cancel this show because the show cannot be topped. If we get 8 whole episodes of Hilde bumbling her way through it, that is everything. It cannot be topped if Hilde ends up being the mole. Because I feel like she would be the oldest mole in decades anywhere. Probably since Hugo, actually.
Yeah, I was about to say since Hugo. Will they ever have a mole older than Hugo?
No.
No. Mostly because they don't cast anyone as old as Hugo anymore.
All right, Hugo, put on these gloves and fight this Muay Thai kickboxer. Oh no, we lost Hugo. No, damn it. Oh no, we lost him. Oh.
I must admit, when I watched that Muay Thai challenge yesterday, I thought they have not learnt anything from Canary Islands, putting the oldest woman in the cast in a vulnerable position physically.
Yeah, I was thinking they were very lucky that it was just a sprain that they walked away with after Muay Thai kickboxing challenge. Because the kickboxer did not hold back. He was
kicking the shit out of him.
I was thinking, well, hopefully nobody cracked a rib from one of those strikes to the body. I think they needed a bubble like they used for the soccer challenge. Was that just... When was that, when they had the bubble soccer? Was that just last season?
No, it's Germany.
That was Germany, yeah.
It was one of the puns they did for being in a bubble.
Yeah.
Oh, for COVID, right.
They did it at the Olympic Stadium in Munich. I remember things.
I'm proud of you. Just not the link to come on the podcast quickly.
I think, if I remember right, for bubble soccer, I think Oscar Schindler invented bubble soccer.
We're not getting to that yet, Saunders, because you know as well as I do that we've done a very bad Oscar Schindler pun before. So we begin a few weeks before they departed for Thailand in Vilvoorde, with Gilles greeting the mole.
Sorry, I'm just imagining trying to mime all of these things while in one of the bubble suits with the Muay Thai guy, just trying to try and kick them through the bubble.
Well, he wouldn't even be kicking them through the bubble. He would be kicking them, and they would just fly out of the ring. Hilde would have gone flying if he'd booted her in a bubble. So, as I said, we begin a few weeks before departure for Thailand in Vilvoorde with Gilles greeting the mole. They're in a warehouse full of mole tricks past, including Pinocchio. This season, they will get a new best friend, a mole briefcase, which they can fill with whatever they think will be useful in Thailand to sabotage.
So it's Pandora's briefcase.
Yeah. Do you guys love this twist as much as I do?
That all the tools they need to sabotage have to fit inside a briefcase? I think that's a pretty cool concept.
I love the fact that, as we've seen in this episode, they're going to do some really goofy, sneaky shit with that mole briefcase, I think. The sabotages are going to be super creative from that suitcase, from that briefcase.
Yeah. I like the idea. I think there's maybe a couple of rules to it that we weren't told. Maybe, when they got the pile of documents about all the challenges, they were like, this is a sabotage we've come up with that we can do. You choose which ones you want. Because I think it's going to be like the doublers where it can only be one an episode rather than every single challenge.
It definitely implied that it's one per episode like the doublers, which makes a lot of sense.
Also, no guns.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Hilde, you can't bring your taser.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just do it when the person's not looking. Oh, well, I guess we didn't make it to the helipad.
There has to be some rules, and unfortunately, Thailand does not allow you to bring tasers in.
Yeah, it'd be tough to clear through customs with it, where they open this briefcase like, oh, let's see. We got a sticker for the 37th floor. We have taser. We have some duct tape, rope, a gun. Let's see. We have a knife, a chainsaw. Yeah, I guess we have a few questions for you.
Did you pack this yourself?
Did you pack? Yep.
So Gilles begins greeting the 10 new strangers by addressing them all directly, telling them they're finally amongst the group and can have a big impact immediately. At stake is €9,000 and the mole's briefcase. It is in Bangkok and will be delivered to a helicopter in 60 minutes. The group can intercept it before it reaches Gilles by boarding the helicopter before the briefcase does, and if they do, the mole will not have access to the briefcase. However, to get the briefcase, they do need to escape the shipping containers. In the first container are Hilde, Jan, and Nimrod, a special name. In the second are Rusiana, Pasquino, Michelle, and Alexei, while in the third and in the dark are Else, Sarah, and Pedro.
What I like about this cast is I can tell everybody apart. It's not like Vidum, where two or three men or two or three of the women are always look alike in Vidum. Here, it's quite easy.
There's no Uma and Anka situation this season, I don't think.
Yeah.
No.
I think if I'm not looking directly at them, I might struggle a little bit with Pedro and Pasquino, but by and large, you can tell these people apart.
Well, my description for Pasquino is he has scraggly diving board hair.
That leads me on perfectly, Saunders. Do you want to give us your 10 descriptions? You know we love them.
Sure, let's see. Jan, I just put old. Hilde, I put old blonde curly hair. Nimrod, I have glasses. Rusian, I put dark hair. Michelle, I have mixed hair. Lexi, I just put black or minority. Pasquino, I have scraggly diving board hair. Else, I have Asian with glasses. Sarah, I have thin, long blonde hair with muscles. And Pedro, I wrote down tall, thin dude. And I didn't have to really. I only had to refer back once to confirm Rusian and Michelle were different, how they were different from each other, and that was really it for the whole episode. This was the easiest season in a while.
I think the only other note that I wrote down about the cast that sort of sticks out is the one I wrote for Rusiana, which is basically Eliza Orleans, but not an asshole ?
Non-Bulgarian Orleans. Or Bulgarian Eliza.
And in the first this fucking show moment of the season, the courier's visor does have the countdown clock on it. And I think that was genuinely real. I think the visor was counting down throughout the challenge. Because we saw it when he got to the helicopter as well, that it had just gone to 0.
I love to get to know people while dancing.
Oh, we know. How do you think we met, Saunders?
I think that was probably all three tasks weren't designed. I think the toughest one was the dark room, but the dancing you could just spout out random facts about yourself, or you just generally know that it can't be too obscure. Like it was where they went to school, pets, and what was it, a TV show?
Yeah,
I'm like, I think that's a TV show. Yeah, so I think those are. Probably there's a reason why the TV show was the last one to get matched up, but otherwise, I think it was fairly straightforward biographical information to try and sync up while dancing.
Yeah, pretty much all the challenges this week were, with the exception of the Muay Thai one, were basically get to know each other.
Yeah. The weird thing with the TV show being last is I'm pretty sure Hilde actually says the name of the TV show when she's trying to work out her link with Nimrod.
Simrad. Or Simrad.
Simba.
I was thinking, Nimrod is an actual name, Hilde. Simrad and Simran are not.
So, Hilde, Simrad, and Jan, we're not going to call him Nimrod all season, are we?
No.
Hilde couldn't even call him that for one episode.
They've got to get to know each other while dancing. To escape their container, they've got to work out the connection between each of them in pairs. For each 2 minutes that they dance, they will learn one letter of a connection that they haven't discovered yet. Jan is our first person introduced. The best day of his life was when Antwerp scored a goal and he hugged men that he'd never seen before. And if that sounds dismissive, that's because it is. What the fuck?
Yeah.
That's the most stereotypical middle-aged European male answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I feel like he's a nice guy, but I don't think he's going to be my thing.
Yeah, I can see that.
Especially his next confession was, yeah, I really look forward to having a beer with the guys here. Oh, and the ladies. Ladies. I didn't forget about them. Please leave that in my confessional. I am not sexist.
He did remind me with his and the ladies bit a little bit of Mark from Argentina, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I had that too. I'm like, where have I heard this before?
It's very much the I'm going to keep digging when I say something that I put my foot in my mouth in when I say it answer.
Yeah, it'll get all the way to the femur in his mouth.
Yeah. He seems perfectly lovely, but yeah. Football seems to be his entire personality, and that's not necessarily something that we have in common.
No.
Yeah, if you're Belgian, you gotta go with cycling.
In the blue container, Els, Pedro, and Sarah must pedal an exercise bike to turn the lights on and match 5 questions on boxes with the numbers from 1 to 5. If they arrange them in the right order, they can then spell out the Thai name for Bangkok and escape their container.
Oh, I thought I spotted a hidden clue during the dancing part of the challenge.
What's that?
Yeah.
Because they played a song, what was it, Let's Go by Yaz?
Don't go.
Y-A-Z. And when I worked in a pharmacy, Yaz is also a brand of birth control. So I thought maybe the hidden clue is that the mole is using Yaz birth control.
Yeah, I'm sure that's definitely not more obscure than any of the bullshit that I came up with for Michael Mons last season that Gilles ripped the piss out of before.
So I'm just saying that could be the hidden clue revealed in the finale.
You're just putting it out there. In the third container, Pasquino, Michelle, Alexi, and Riciana must score 10 points to escape. And they don't realise it, but they score points by touching their noses, but lose them by swearing. And Alexi tries hitting balls at the screen with their score on it.
I can't believe we're 8 minutes into the premiere and we've already been riffing off the Hitchcock Hotel Challenge and Taskmaster.
Yeah, this is a direct Taskmaster task, I think. The score 10 points definitely is. I think it was also touching your nose was what increased it. The swearing bit was just for Gilles, but yeah, this is a Taskmaster task that they've just adapted for a mini challenge here, sort of.
Which I'm not mad about.
No.
At least Kathy wasn't in that room. It's like, oh, you guys are at minus 35 points. You're not getting out of this container.
Or Lloyd just hanging from the roof going, hot for dumber! Hot for dumber!
How hot would it have been inside those containers? There's like metal in a harbour in Bangkok. Does not strike me as the sort of place you want to be like trapped inside for an hour.
I don't think it would have necessarily been particularly pleasant.
Especially if you were dancing non-stop.
Yeah. So Nimrod hasn't told anyone he was doing his interview, but he did think that he was getting kidnapped or scammed, so he put a piece of paper in his laptop with the location on in case he doesn't return home. That is one of the greatest instructions to any contestant we've ever had.
Yeah. That is almost as good as like I have one swollen testicle.
Yes. They figure out Hilde and Nimrod's link is that they both have a dog and 2 chickens. And the middle container complete their 5 boxes, but only read out the top of one of them, and they don't realise that it's all 5 boxes worth to unlock the container. Sarah says she loves an escape room. She's got a group of friends who do them nicknamed the Rookies, and she's enthusiastic in them, but doesn't decipher much.
Well, she's going to be annoyed when she finds out she accidentally applied for Belgium's next top escape artist.
Yep. And Alexi says he would love to teach. He's enthusiastic about chemistry. He doesn't assume that he'd be a super awesome teacher, but he's very enthusiastic along with it.
Does he like chemistry more than Rachel Riley?
His hair extensions are worth less than $500, though, to be fair.
Is that dollars with the ARDS or just ARS?
You know it's always dollars. Nimrod and Jan both went to a college called Sacred Heart, leaving just the 5-letter connection between Hilde and Jan and them escaping.
Do you think Peter teaches at Sacred Heart?
I'm not sure if Peter's teaching anymore, actually, to be fair, but I'd be shocked if the school that Peter used to teach at wasn't called Sacred Heart, to be honest. It's a very Catholic name.
Is either that or Our Lady of Perpetual Sorrow?
Yeah, I'm assuming Nimrod and Yen didn't go to the same Sacred Heart, because again, it's a very common Catholic name for a school. Else makes another attempt at Bangkok's name, and they are the first to escape, and they board a van to the helicopter. In the van, they find a video from Gilles telling them that it's not that simple. For the first group to get to the helicopter, there is an advantage, and the teams left in the containers are told that one team has left already. Only 2 teams can board a van, so 1 will get left behind. The 10-point team escape their container but find no vans left, as Jan and Hilde found that their connection is the TV program Home.
I just love that the nose group got out without ever really understanding the challenge.
Yeah, I don't actually think they would have found out what the objective of that challenge was until they watched that episode on Sunday.
No.
Which is kind of hilarious. For the 2 teams in the vans, they are the ones who can earn the €9,000. The front van will be asked a question about someone in the back van. If they're correct, it will bank €3,000, but if they're incorrect, then the first van has to pull over for 5 minutes, allowing the van at the back to overtake them. The blue van are at the back, and Nimrod suggests that for the first 2 questions they tell the truth and then earn €6,000 as a result. Only on the last one will they lie and overtake. Now, here's where we get to the first very interesting introduction, because Hilda's introduction is all about how she loves cheating at games, and if she can't, then she'll have a tantrum.
Which is kind of a perfect introduction to a child psychologist.
It is. But I've been burned by this before, because I'm pretty sure Senna said an identical statement in his introduction last year.
Huh.
And that's what made you rule him out?
No, that's what made me suspect him immediately, and I'm pretty sure that Senna's introduction last year, and I've not gone back to my notes and checked this, so I might be wrong, I'm pretty sure he said that he loves cheating at games in his introduction.
I can see that.
And that's very interesting, because if they are trying to troll us a little bit, that inherently makes Hilda suspicious. And we've not been subtle about our love on this podcast of useless older women contestants. I am worried we're being pandered to. I'm worried that they have put that confessional in purely to troll us a little bit and make us think Hilda's the mole.
Yeah, it's something to think about.
I'm keeping Pasquino's one good eye on you, Hilda.
Yeah. Do we know if Michelle's surname starts with M?
I've not looked it up. I've not followed any of them, actually. I probably should have done that. Yeah. If it doesn't, then they start doing M&M clues. I may have to throttle someone.
No, it's a V. Never mind.
No, that's a shame. So yeah, Hilda loves cheating at games. She goes for the win, and if she notices it's not going to work, she switches to plan B, which is ranting. And they are asked what Hilda's job is, either CEO, child psychologist, or school principal. And they are correctly told by Hilda that it is B, and bank €3,000. The second question is what Nimrod's real name is, either Roderick, Diedrich, or Nimrod. They don't believe him when he says his actual name is Nimrod, and get it wrong, allowing the blue van to overtake them.
I believe Pedro's exact words were, I think it's from Lord of the Rings.
I just love that the entire point of that question is like, no, seriously, Nimrod, what's your real name?
Yeah, when Pedro says, I think it's from Lord of the Rings, it's from that famous Tolkien book, the Bible, specifically the Old Testament.
And Nimrod's like, no, I'm just screwing with you guys. My real name's not Nimrod. It's Madonna.
But also, if you have any knowledge of American culture, you don't call yourself Nimrod if it's not your actual name.
No.
And I bet them not thinking that was his real name, they were the ones who felt like a bunch of Nimrods.
Yeah. We did worry pre-season that Nimrod was going to end up being the mole, and it would basically be production going, you're Nimrod for not even thinking it's him.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, I looked into the name, right?
He's a biblical warrior in the Old Testament, I think.
Yeah, there's also something in the Divine Comedy, which I sort of fell down the rabbit hole with after seeing Pinocchio at the start. Like, I was sort of looking for, like, references to Sicily and Italy and all that sort of stuff. In the Divine Comedy, Nimrod is basically trapped in one of the circles of hell, all about treachery. Which is the sort of thing that's, like, just obscure enough that I think they might do it, but it's also the sort of thing that's also easy enough to find that it would make me sort of doubt whether they actually are.
Interesting. I think for me, not to spoil my suspicions list at the end of the episode, I think I went into this episode hoping that Nimrod would give me something suspicious, but he felt very authentic player to me in this episode.
Yeah.
He reminded me a lot of Vietnam Martin, actually. They look quite similar anyway, but he was a very earnest player, I seem to remember.
Yeah, they both look like Rivers Cuomo from Weezer.
Yeah. Nimrod gave me earnest vibes. And I know this is the sort of thing that we go back to 7 weeks later and go, you were wrong. But he feels quite earnest in this episode to me, especially in this first challenge.
Ernest goes to Thailand. Ernest doesn't go to Thailand.
Ernest gets punched by a Thai kickboxer.
And this may just end up being the curse of my suspicions, but I can't see it being him right now after this episode.
The annoying thing is, like, we're early enough in the season that I don't know whether he's being good at the challenges because he's good at the challenges, or whether he's being good at the challenges to do that thing they always love to do where, like, I won money now so I can take it out later.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't know which way they're going to go with this, which is interesting. It's much more interesting to be like this with this than with Venom, where you can basically pretty sure whoever's pretending to be a contestant in the first episode is probably doing it because there's a pot train coming up.
Yeah. And talking of amazing introductions, Pedro's first statement is, I once punched a man in the face. Because his story is all about him and his wife going cycling and a guy in a sports car opening his window and slapping her ass as he drives past, to which Pedro pedalled furiously, gave him a light slap on the face, and then pedalled off. Again, I am a big fan of Pedro's work. This is the sort of thing that every contestant interview should be. It should just be goofy shit from your life.
Yeah. I have a question. Like, you know how we were like just talking about how, like, Gilles might pick Nimrod just so he can do the joke?
Yeah.
Do you think they might pick Pedro just so they can do the vote for Pedro joke? You know, being like the film nerds that they are.
Yeah. Knowing that they love movie references as they do, that's the sort of thing that they would do, yeah.
Has Napoleon Dynamite been referenced before?
Don't think so, but it's very much Gilles' era, I would say.
2003, 2004, I think, is when it came out. 2003?
Because Gilles' not that much older than us. He's probably only got a couple of years on you, Bindles.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think he's as old as you think he is.
Just because he's a Papa Bear now?
Yeah.
Well, you know, us bears have got to stick together.
Are you saying that when we started podcasting about Belgian Mol, that is interesting.
Gilles is 44.
Oh, okay.
So he would have been kind of 23, 24 when Napoleon Dynamite came out.
Yeah, he definitely would have seen it.
And I'm being very careful with saying these things because I know that Gilles listens to these podcasts and he'll just email me next week going, "You think I'm that old? You fuck."
Well, happy 75th birthday, Jules.
Yeah. I hear you and Hugo will be hanging out in the same assisted living home.
You'll also note we're calling him Gilles this season because we got a slight telling off for the nicknames last year and we're trying not to do too many of them.
Hugo, if you get up to call bingo, I will turn your machine off.
So the final question ends up being for the blue van and about what physical trick Else is most proud of, either being able to curl her tongue, being able to spread her toes wide apart, or being able to write with both hands simultaneously.
Or all of the above.
Can I be honest? Two of them don't really seem like tricks to me.
Why? Which ones could you do?
What
Rank
do you
the
like
tricks.
To know? Like, I can do the toe thing and I can curl my tongue in my mouth. Like maybe writing with both hands would be harder, but like the other two don't really seem like, you know, impressive sort of party trick sort of things.
Also, I'm not sure what parties you've been to, but getting your feet out probably isn't top of the list at parties.
Yeah.
There'd have to be a lot of alcohol involved.
You don't crowd around with your friends and go, "Oh, else, get your feet out."
Yeah.
That's a bit more niche areas of the internet.
John, have you seen this woman's feet? Have you seen her toes?
You don't want your toes wide open with your eyes wide shut.
And we're going to throw, while she has her toes wide apart, we're going to put this piece of paper on this table. We're going to give her 2 pencils.
Collar's back when you can write with your feet, else. That shit's lame.
Write with your feet with your fingers really far apart.
So as you may have guessed, we see that it's the toes and she doesn't have an interesting story in her confessional otherwise. And Else tells the truth and gets interrogated by Hilde. They don't believe her, which is a shame, as this is the question that decides who will get the chance to go to the helicopter.
I wish if, I know I'm jumping ahead a bit, but if Else was in the kickboxing challenge, I wish she could have picked up the Thai kickboxer with her toes.
If Else was in the kickboxing challenge, she would have flown across that ring.
She flew all the way into Cambodia.
So yeah, Else, Sarah, and Pedro are the ones who have the chance to go to the helicopter, as the blue van has to pull over and let them overtake. And Else gloats by spreading her toes at them as she drives past.
I'm kind of disappointed they got to take the elevator up to the rooftop. Like, admittedly, like when I watched it, I didn't know, the last challenge was coming.
Yeah,
But I think it would have been funny if instead of going up in the elevator, the motorbike driver basically had to ride the motorbike up like it was that one moon in Super Mario Odyssey.
yes. Yeah, they should have made it a lot more challenging.
Yeah. Just load the motorcycle onto like a window washer ledge and just sort of pull yourself up on the rope.
Yeah, because it would have been even better if the trio could have pulled up and then seen him kind of winching himself up and going, "Shit, we're going to beat him." So they pull up at the skyscraper where the helicopter awaits with just under 6 minutes left on the clock, and luckily for them, they don't have to climb the stairs, but can take the lift all the way. When they get to the helipad while the helicopter's still there, giving them the advantage and taking their briefcase out of the game, along with earning €3,000 of 9,000 for the challenge. They are handed the briefcase by the courier as the visor display turns to 0, and they are treated to a flight over Bangkok on the way to Papa Bear.
I had a look at this building because, like, when they were going on about, oh, it's such a tall building and all that sort of stuff, I looked at it and I'm because it doesn't look that tall really compared to what you think a skyscraper looks like.
Yeah.
Now I looked into it. It's 10 stories higher than the tallest building in Belgium.
That doesn't seem that tall.
Yeah, like it's 48 stories or something. The tallest building in Belgium is only about 37, 38 stories.
Yeah.
Belgian people are much taller, but yet the buildings are much shorter. I don't get that.
Yeah, I mean, you've been to Bangkok, haven't you, Saunders?
Yes.
It's a hectic city. We drove through Bangkok because we only were in Thailand for one day. We went to Ayutthaya. So we drove through Bangkok, and it was pretty chaotic.
Yeah, I spent 2 weeks in Bangkok.
Are we allowed to talk about that on the podcast, or is it legal in several states?
But yeah, because they have two different like essentially 2 different metros. They have both above ground metro and the underground, just because of how busy it is there. But now they have all these like bypasses as well that you can pay to use as well within Bangkok. And even when I was there, when there were travel restrictions due to COVID, when you had to do all of that, all of those crazy forms that you had to fill out, like I had to bring a big envelope with just like 20 pieces of paper in there, all filled out just to get into Thailand. And even with the limited number of tourists, with all the different rules at the time, every tourist attraction was still quite busy. And then I said, yeah, this is quite, or I did the tour of, was that the Grand Palace, the Royal Palace, whatever the main, where the royalty live.
Yeah.
The tour, I made a comment about, oh, there are a lot of tourists here for this tour. And the guy said, no, I do 2 or 3 of these a day. You guys are a group of about 25 to 30 people. Usually it's over 100 people I take at a time on these tours.
Wow.
Yeah. 25 to 30 is not that much.
Yeah. Because there were also other people on the grounds and stuff. And
Yeah.
I thought, this seems quite busy. He's like, no, this is nothing. And then
Yeah.
I spent a few months of it in Phuket, and even with how busy the bars and pubs were at night and a fair amount of people on the beach, they were saying, "Oh no, there's like 5 times as many people compared to this." And then I thought,
Hmm.
maybe I'm going to stay in Phuket now for as long as I can, because once these restrictions lift, it doesn't seem like it would be a very fun place to visit.
Yeah.
I was surprised how quiet the roads seemed to be, considering what we see every other time any other TV show goes to Bangkok.
I do think it's interesting that they were allowed to drive in Vietnam and they weren't allowed to drive in Thailand.
I assume it's probably something to do with like insuring the cars or something.
Yeah, I presume so as well. But Vietnam is way more chaotic for traffic.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But when they said, I mean, from the brief glimpse I've had at Bangkok traffic, when they announced last week, oh yeah, they're not actually going to be driving their cars this season, they've got drivers. I did think, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't want to drive on Thai roads either, to be honest.
No.
So during the flight, they are told that the mole has left them a message, and they now face a choice. If they let the suitcase join the game still, they will get a personal advantage each. If they do, though, it will be a disadvantage for the whole group the whole season. And they have until they land to decide what they're going to do. What would you have done in their situation? Would you have let the briefcase in?
I think I would have been suspicious that we didn't know what the advantage was. And I think I would have probably maybe not picked exactly what the advantage was, but I would have been able to guess that it's probably not all it's cracked up to be. So I wouldn't have let the case into the game.
Yeah, I would have felt like it was too much of a trap. It should have just been outright, oh, you get an exemption or, 3 passfragen on the quiz. But the fact that it wasn't specified, it makes it feel like it's some sort of trap to let the briefcase into the game.
Here's the thing, though. This is going to be the big season-long twist. Are they really going to stop at one attempt to get the briefcase in the game if you say no?
Maybe.
I think you probably take the short-term gain, knowing that the briefcase is probably going to find a way into the game regardless.
Yeah.
Because I suspect if they'd said no here, maybe the mole wasn't allowed to do the very fun skyscraper sabotage that they do later, but there probably would have been another shot next episode for the briefcase to enter the game on the train challenge or something.
Yeah. It'd probably be just sort of hidden until they find it. Like it might have been, in one of the bags in the market or like that sort of thing, or maybe hidden inside that vent.
It's the same thing I think of when I think of the doublers last season. Like, they were never going to not let the doublers enter the game. They were always going to have some of them in the game just because it is the big twist of the season.
But it could have been like Pandora's box, right? Where because it didn't get activated, then they have it saved up for another season.
Yeah, but even with the Greece season, they didn't really have a big season long twist in that way. It was all more themed around Greek myths and fables, wasn't it? When you have an overarching twist for the season like this one, or like the doublers, as a production team, you kind of want it to get into the game somehow. You need a failsafe if it doesn't get in the game the first attempt.
Yeah, and like I like that they had to, I guess, earn the briefcase instead of just being like, okay, this is what we're doing this season. Good effing luck.
The other thing that is worth flagging here is they were quite generous not making it money or briefcase.
Hmm.
The fact that, as they actually mentioned in the episode, oh yeah, we still gain the money from it, that seems very generous in this situation.
Yeah.
So the helicopter lands, and Gilles asks for their decision, and they decide to allow the briefcase to enter the game, and that means the mole will be able to rely on everything inside for the season. And obviously, the B-roll for them going to dinner is set to one night in Bangkok.
Yep.
I wish it was the Mike Tyson version on vocals.
Everyone reunites at dinner, and Gilles confirms that they earned 3,000 euros with the first challenge, but the mole also earned their briefcase. He lets Pedro reveal the dilemma, and the rest of them are not best pleased with their decision.
Yeah, the Bulgarian lady was ready to just beat the crap out of everybody.
And then, as we said earlier, Gilles shows off by reciting the Thai name for Bangkok, because of course he does,
Yeah.
before giving them all their mole books, and unfortunately for Fuzzy, she loses a pre-season bingo square, as Alexi does not go for the green or blue book.
I wish it's just each episode that Jill will recite some random piece of information, just maybe the Maybe next episode he'll recite the first 100 digits of pi just to impress everybody.
3.1415926535, etc., etc.
Yeah, he just mumbles when he's not confident around the 60th digit or so.
Yeah.
3, 4, 5,
Yeah.
5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5.
2.
2.
And then in episode 3, it's just going to be like the entire periodic table, including all the lanthanides and actinides.
Basically, what we're saying here is Gilles is a show-off, and we love it.
Yeah.
And then the next episode, it's every European capital city in alphabetical order.
Finally, Andorra La Vella gets mentioned.
Hey, you're spoiling the location for next season, Bindles.
There is nothing to do in Andorra.
They'll find something to do in Andorra, damn it.
They could go to a different ski resort every episode.
So then everyone goes to their hotel rooms, and there's just fun character scenes, to be honest. We get Michelle's messages from home with her family, and Sarah getting her kids stuffed toys so they can always remember her and she can sleep well. We also get Nimrod and Michelle checking into their room, and Nimrod forgetting to do his one job of putting a card in to keep the lights on, and Hilde calling Nimrod Simrod.
Simrod? Why are all of you giggling?
See, if that's a double bluff and she is the one and knew what Nimrod's name was. Hard for dumber.
You know who wouldn't want to be in a room with Lexi and Pedro that night? That would have been Mark.
Yeah, I mean, certainly not in a homosexual way.
Thank you, Rudy.
I did also love that evidently Alexi and Pedro were the only ones who weren't sharing a bed, presumably because both of them sleep naked. They were the only ones with twin beds.
Huh. How much luggage did all of these people pack? Like, were they told they were going to Antarctica?
Especially else. Her bag was massive.
Her bag was taller than herself.
And the thing is, we probably should have mentioned this at the start of the episode. They tricked us with Thailand as a location anyway, because I did get a list of all the Chewy destinations from Belgium, and Thailand is not one of them. They would have had to probably have a charter plane for this season. So I don't actually know what their luggage allowance would have been, but I reckon that Elsie's was pretty close already.
Yeah.
I think Else had packed another Else in her backpack.
Yeah.
Would there be a Chewy flight to Bangkok from Frankfurt or Amsterdam, somewhere nearby?
It's only the UK, I think.
Huh.
As far as I'm aware, the UK is the only country that TUI fly to Thailand from. Because I think there's about 3 or 4 Thai options from the UK.
Huh.
Certainly Phuket and Bangkok. I think there's at least one more, but I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. But yeah, it was a pleasant surprise, because the reason I know so much about where TUI fly is they also sponsor Married at First Sight UK, and all the honeymoons are TUI flights of some description. So you get really random ones like the Gambia.
Ooh, exotic.
Yeah.
Next location.
Some of them are like the Italian Alps in the middle of winter where it's fucking freezing, and then one couple gets to go to Gambia or Mexico.
Like, I genuinely really like the idea of a mole season in that part of Africa.
Mm.
But I don't know maybe if it's the sort of place that like I would go for a holiday.
Yeah. It was actually quite interesting as a honeymoon location on maths, to be honest. It was more enjoyable as a honeymoon location than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
And it is one of the places that Chewy fly direct from Belgium to. So they wake up on day 2, and this season they won't be driving themselves as it's too chaotic. Instead, they'll have drivers and not be told anything about where they're going. And Pass reveals in the car that he's blind in his right eye, so he always sits on the right-hand side. And he says in confessional he has no depth perception, and badminton is a disaster in the first quarter. Frisbee ends up being funny for others, but not for him. And he never wants to use it as an excuse.
And one of the drivers is not named after a character in the Jungle Book.
Nope.
He was very eager to correct them.
It's Khan, not Khan.
Khan!
Feel my wrath.
So they are taken to a floating market with a choice from Gilles. He's looking for 4 people to play the tourist, while the other 6 will do something a bit more active. And Jan, Michelle, Russiana, and Elsa the tourists, while the other 6 are the active team. Without knowing what the challenges were, which one would you guys have picked?
Probably the market.
Yeah. I feel like, at least from my perspective, if Gilles says there's an active option, I don't trust it in the slightest.
Yeah, it's going to be like something really active in a way that you probably don't want to do in 30+ degree weather.
Yeah.
And then sort of seeing the challenges, I'm like, I would much rather, sit on a boat and maybe get hit in the face with noodles than, have to try and mime things while not getting hit in the face by a kickboxer.
Yes. A kickboxer who very much is not holding back.
Yeah.
What do you pick, Saunders?
Both seem like fun.
Yeah.
I mean, they do both seem like fun.
In terms of stories, you can go home and say, this was really fun that I did it. I think probably the Muay Thai was more fun in that respect. But also, I would not want to get a punch from a professional kickboxer in my chest.
No.
There would be a non-zero chance you get medically evacuated from the game.
I would be broken by this challenge, I think.
Yeah, and then you get to just ramble and tell whatever stories about yourself in the floating market challenge. So, yeah, I guess I would do that one just to make sure I don't get pulled from the game. I don't get anchored.
So the 4 tourists will be getting the ingredients for pad thai for dinner and can earn money by answering personal questions. The more ingredients that they pass from front to back of the boat using chopsticks, the more money the question is worth. The first question will be about Rusiana's life in Bulgaria, and they will be passing peanuts from front to back.
All peanuts.
Yeah, it's not one of your specialty shows, Saunders. They're not passing anything other than peanuts.
Well, this is Bangkok.
Yeah, the 4th round was ping pong balls, but that was unaired.
I think my favourite part of this entire challenge is Rusiana basically shouting her information like she's an old person telling her a phone scammer her banking password.
You can only imagine if you were a tourist for real in that floating market and you just kind of sailed past 4 random Belgians just screaming Dutch at each other.
Via Ferrata, do you know what that is?
My mother's maiden name is Janet. I went to school at Sacred Heart.
My PIN code is 0000.
My first pet name and my first street name are...
Vilvoorde.
And she says she's been in Belgium for 11 years and moved for love. She met her husband in Sunny Beach where she was working, and one of the producers actually compliments her on her Dutch in her interview. The other 6 will be facing a local Muay Thai champion in the ring. He will have 5 ribbons attached to him while blindfolded, and they must enter the ring in pairs to grab the ribbons and act out what is on them. And the pairs end up being Hilde and Pedro, Alexi and Sarah, and Nimrod and Pasquino. For the first round, the ribbons are movie titles, but they have to act them out quietly so he doesn't hear them. And Gilles provides them with mouth guards, but in typical Gilles fashion, the mouth guards have harmonicas in. And Alexi cannot stop laughing. Spoilers for me watching this episode yesterday without making notes. I also couldn't stop laughing because this is the hardest that I have laughed at television in about a year. Fucking hell.
Since the last episode of this show.
Yeah, since the finale of this show in the press room where Mikael was just being an absolute star on that opera challenge. Like, this was a very, very funny thing to make them do.
Yeah.
Especially with Alexi not being able to stop laughing about it.
Do you think the kickboxer was told not to punch them in the face, knowing that they basically had mouthfuls of metal?
I suspect so. He definitely seemed to be making a lot more body shots than headshots.
Yeah, can you imagine? He goes for the head the whole time.
I'm not sure those are really regulation mouth guards, put it that way.
Yeah, I don't recall too many mouth guards that have harmonicas built into them whenever I watch martial arts.
Yeah. However funny this actually was, I think he was probably under strict instructions to not punch them in the head if he could help it. So each correct title is worth €200 for a total of €1,000 per round, and each round lasts 3 minutes or until both of them are punched by the fighter. And the peanut round ends with €500 at stake, and the other 3 are asked what the name of the hotel Rusiana met her husband in is, and they go with Sunny Beach and get lucky as both the area and the hotel are called Sunny Beach, and they are correct for €500. With less than a minute left, Sarah grabs the first ribbon and they correctly guess Gladiator. Alexa goes for a second one but ends up getting clocked in the head. I think his is the only headshot. And Sarah ends the round with a sprained thumb. I did also... I mean, obviously Hilde is the banner creeping around the ring in the 3rd round. A very close second was Sarah's reaction when Alexei punches her in the head at the start of this challenge, because that made me laugh a lot as well. Because he doesn't give her any warning. As soon as she puts her head guard on, he just punches her straight in the head.
Sucker punch.
Nimrod and Pasquino enter for the second round, which is famous figures. They're a bit more successful, getting 3 answers quickly before Nimrod doesn't know how to act out one of them and gets a few punches in the stomach when he does grab the last ribbon. He does, however, act out the mannequin piss.
I like how it's just instant. They instantly got that one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically the most famous thing in Belgium.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, it's that and the atomium.
Yeah, and we're only allowed to take pictures of the mannequin piss.
Hmm.
The second market round is just slices of lemon, and the question is about Elsie's hobbies. And she says it's a mystery to her what her hobbies are. And they play for €750, but don't know the hobby that Els does with her boyfriend, as she wasn't allowed to elaborate on Via Ferrata.
I thought it was odd that she basically just sort of kept listing like thing after thing after thing after thing after thing after thing, but providing no context to any of it.
Yeah.
Like, even before, the Via Ferrata stuff, she was like basically just going straight from one thing to another without explaining what anything had to do with anything, which basically meant even if she said the answer, there was no chance they were going to get the question right.
Yeah, I think with Els for me, I don't find her suspicious because I'm not sure she's the sort of personality they'd pick as a mole.
Yeah.
I think if we just took her at face value, some of the stuff she does is very suspicious in this episode. But I think she's maybe a little too competitive for the sort of person that they pick, at least outwardly. Usually if they pick a mole who's competitive, the mole sits on it a little bit more, like with Germany. I mean, Lenny was very, very competitive, but he never really showed it to the group. Whereas I think that Els very much showed her cards very quickly in this episode. So it'd be interesting if she is the mole, going for that outwardly antagonistically competitive mole this season. And obviously, I don't know who you suspect, Bindles, you might have her at number 1. But I think for me, she just felt a little too nakedly competitive for them to pick as a mole.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So the final round is not with chopsticks, but instead with cups of noodles. And they have to wear blindfolds to transfer them between each other. Oh my god. This was in the trailer and it was still hilarious to me.
Rusiana, not very good with the bowl dumping technique.
Michelle was worse.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, or Michelle, was she the one that dumped it into Elsa's bowl?
Yeah.
Yeah, Michelle. Yeah, that was Michelle.
The order was Jan at the front, then Rusiana, then Michelle, then Els.
I think she got it more in Elsa's face than in Elsa's bowl.
It was hilarious visuals of her just dumping stuff in Elsie's lap and Els looking outraged. But she was not good at it, especially when Rusiana probably had the right tactic with Jan as to how to transfer the noodles. Rusiana and Jan were both transferring them basically by docking their cups together to make life easy, whereas Michelle was just throwing it straight behind and not really caring. As was Els, to be fair. And Michelle tells us in confessional that she didn't want kids until she saw her boyfriend hold someone's skull together for 2 hours while they were in Italy. And all I have to say to that is, evidently, medical emergencies, very sexy.
Yeah, nothing makes you want to procreate like somebody's brain leaking out onto a person's arms, apparently.
It was just such odd phrasing where she's like, I never really wanted kids, but that DNA needed to be passed on.
Once I saw that guy's brain splatter on my husband's arms, that's when I knew I was ready.
It's genuinely the only situation where you can make a how's your head joke.
And the final round of the boxing ring is Hilde and Pedro acting out proverbs. And they get one of the answers where Pedro gets clocked in the chest, and Hilde struggles to act out a dog before the time ends with €1,000 of €3,000 scored.
It was not a dog. She was not a dog. No person in any charades game has ever used that to express that they are trying to act out like a dog. Oh, I thought that's a monkey. It's definitely a monkey.
I was like, what proverbs are there that use tapirs?
If Hilda's not the mole, the more episodes we get of her, the better.
Yeah.
She's a delight.
She's maybe my favourite old person I've ever had, which is a very high bar.
Old people have never let us down on this version of the mole, and Hilde very much is in that group already. And they collect €250 of noodles and are asked what activity Michelle met her boyfriend at, and they are correct with swimming because Michelle actually said it, unlike else, for a total of €750 of 3,000 for their side of the challenge.
They were very generous giving them €250 for those noodles. Like, because they were maybe like a quarter of the way to the first line.
Yeah, I think €250 was probably the bare minimum they were allowed in that challenge.
Yeah.
Because there need to be some stakes to the questions. And when the group come together, the market team offer pad thai, and Pass has to feed Sarah as her sprained thumb means she can't hold chopsticks. Else ends up going with her to A&E, and it's not broken, but she does have some muscle relaxants that they have prescribed that she'll offer for a low, low price.
And Jan keeps trying to speak in Flemish to the waiter. He's like, "Vier glasses, wait, no, four.
And German.
And German, yeah. Swing and a miss.
Yeah. On the morning of day 3, they go on a tour of Bangkok, scored to a very interesting version of Dreams by the Cranberries. And I'll be honest, it took me an entire day to work out which Cranberries song it was meant to be. It's the Mandarin version of Dreams.
Interesting.
Huh.
Why Mandarin?
I'm just assuming that that's the sort of thing that will end up being a clue of some description.
Yeah.
Sarah enlists Nimrod's help to write in her mole book, but regrets it when she sees his handwriting. And when the tour ends, Gilles spoils their fun by announcing it's time to find out how much they know about the mole, and he does his test speech to their faces.
And then, what was it, during the quiz, Alexei says, I think Sarah might be the mole because she is a lawyer and gets paid to lie.
Yeah.
I was thinking, that is one of the most brutal first confessionals on the quiz ever.
Well, the thing is, the test didn't really actually tell us much about people's suspicions. We went back and forth between people. There were a couple of people who got more than one of these test confessionals, but it didn't really tell us much about who people were suspecting, which was interesting. But it's time for the test. 20 questions about the identity and actions of the mole who have no sleeves goes home, except for the mole who can never go home. Pedro, Else, and Sarah all have an unknown advantage from this test. Hilde says that she doesn't think she's been this nervous since she did an internal medicine exam 35 years ago. Nimrod thinks that he's okay. Now you've got time to spread. Most people do unless they're sure. Pedro threw the ribbon away before they'd given the answer, which cost them €200, which was suspicious. Rossiana said it could be anyone apart from her, obviously. She noticed that Michelle had a lot of noodles at her feet. Alexei spread over 3 people in the helicopter, plus Sarah and Pedro seem like good choices, and as Logan said, Sarah lies for a living. Sarah's keeping an eye on Else, as the best spot for the mole was at the back of the boat. She also cost them €750 by not talking about Via Ferrata. Else says that Jan and Michelle blocked her talking about Via Ferrata, which cost them. Michelle says Hilde would make a wonderful mole. She's smart, she's on the ball, and she could absolutely do it. It'd be so fun to see someone like her do it. Jan was suspicious of Pasquino, saying he's blind in one eye because of the saying, as blind as a mole, and in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Which, again, really gave me shades of Mark from Argentina, putting his foot in his mouth constantly. I don't think even this production team would go, let's cast a one-eyed guy as the mole just so he can do a proverb joke.
No. Well, he can't lie with his eyes.
Very true. He lies with his eye. Pass's main suspect is Alexei. He's brought nothing in and he's meant to be athletic. Even half-blind man Pass brought money in. And Pedro says they don't know what their advantage is, but he's expecting something to happen at the execution. They are then taken to the lift for the execution, but not before Gilles pipes his voice into the lift. He says he's waiting on the roof, and as soon as they reach him, it's one of their last moments in the game. However, their journey upstairs could change everything, and they could all avoid a red screen. On the roof are 10 chairs, and they can disable those chairs so that no one has to go home. If they disable the right chair, there is no one to receive a red screen. Each chair disabled is also worth €200 for the pot. The lift will stop 5 times, and at each floor they must decide which pair leaves. At each stop, they'll have to get into the stairs to reach the control panel on the 37th floor, and they've got 10 minutes once the lift starts moving. The 3 that reach the helicopter receive their personal advantage in the form of knowledge of which chair is theirs, as the chairs are all anonymized, and they now know which chair to disable to save themselves.
I just loved that they got this advantage in the form of the tiniest little envelopes that television has ever seen.
Well, I presume that was so that nobody could look over their shoulders in a very crowded, tiny lift. But I'm
Yeah.
also very impressed that all 10 of them fit in that lift, to be honest. It was a bit of a squeeze.
all 11 of them, because there was the guard as well, or the
Very true.
guy pushing the buttons.
Yeah. So the lift begins moving and stops at floor 19. When it stops after 20 seconds, Rusiana and Pass are the first ones to get out. They're asked which of the three options is an Aerosmith song from 1989, either Love Lift Us Up Where We Belong, Love in an Elevator, or Crowded Elevator. If they get the right answer, they can saw through the chain holding the right card to unlock the door to the stairs. The next stop is floor 11, and it's Pedro and Sarah who get out. And they're asked what the name of the Roald Dahl character who entered the glass lift is, either Matilda, Danny, or Charlie. The next floor is 23, and it's Nimrod and Yan. They're asked which city has the tallest building in the world, and Yan doesn't need the options. He knows it's Dubai, and that it's the Burj Khalifa. The fourth stop, however, is the funniest one, because it's Hilda and Els on floor 33 being asked who created the first public lift in New York in 1874, either the Otis brothers, Oscar Schindler, or Tice Krupp. Now, I don't know whether you know who Tice Krupp is, Saunders.
No, but I know who Oscar Schindler is.
So Tice Krupp doesn't exist. It is a pun on the lift company Tyson Krupp.
Oh,
So
that's clever.
one of these options doesn't exist. One of these options is a famous resistance fighter, and one of these options is correct. Have a guess which ones they don't go for first.
I'm just blown away that you had two people in Belgium, and they both agreed that the first public elevator was made by Oscar Schindler. Schindler's Lift.
Yeah. And if you cast your mind back into the deep archives of this podcast, you remember that in the very first fake Amazing Race podcast we ever did, we had an extended fake challenge themed around people going to Germany and doing a challenge in Schindler's Lift. So as much as I don't want to joke that we're being pandered to here, I think we're being pandered to here.
In my defense, that was before I was here. You cannot blame me for that.
Yes, it was. And I stand by it as a very funny challenge, to be honest, that we came up with. Back in the days where we didn't fear getting cancelled. So yeah, they go for Oscar Schindler, and Gilles is very, very sarcastic in his voiceover when he says that it wasn't Oscar Schindler because he's a famous resistance fighter. Pedro cuts through the floor 11 chain, and he and Sarah need to climb 26 floors in 5.5 minutes to switch some chairs off. Alexi and Michelle have the last floor, which is 29, and they're asked which lift exists, either a nerve lift, a Shabbat lift, or a trumpet lift. Yan and Nimrod get their chain unlocked and enter at floor 23 with only 14 floors to climb. Floor 19's chain is then cut, and Pass and Rusiana can't find the scanner. They eventually find it and have 18 floors to climb. Hilde and Els cut their chain, but it's wrong. Schindler's not a lift manufacturer, but a resistance hero, and they decide to go for the obviously fake answer of Krupp. Alexi and Michelle get through their chain and escape floor 29. Els and Hilde are wrong again, but they now know it's the Otis brothers.
And I suppose the good news is, on their third attempt, at least they know how to cut through the chain now.
Yeah, because I think out of all the pairs, they are probably the weakest physically. This is probably the biggest challenge for them, which is presumably why they were given the one that's 4 floors away from the top. But again, we don't even see them cut the chain in the end. They don't get to have the victory moment of actually opening the door on camera. Nimrod's the first to reach the 37th floor, but can't find the control panel, followed closely by Yan. And it turns out that the mole's first briefcase item was a custom sign for floor 37, which they then stuck over the floor 36 sign. And during the mole's test scene, they snuck out and stuck it on.
This fucking mole.
Yeah. Whether that was a production choice or a mole choice, hats off to them, because that is fantastic.
I have a feeling that was a mole choice. I feel like they wouldn't lie to us like that.
Yeah, regardless of who actually made the first choice of suggesting it, it's a fabulous choice of a sabotage. And if that is the level of sabotage we're going to get from this mole, it's going to be a very fun season.
Yeah. I'm surprised that nobody sort of realized it was fake sort of when they were going up and seeing like, oh, 34th floor, 35th floor. Why is the next one 37? Like, I'm surprised nobody, noticed that. Like, sort of like watching the floors go up as they go, and just why did they all think they skipped floor 36? Like that's the part that I don't get. But I think as a sabotage on its own, really funny, really clever, a really nice way to make sort of like those really like cheesy promos that Australia 6 had, sort of make that feel like they actually fit in the world of the mole. But like this is really, really good.
Yeah, the other thing I will say as well is it makes everyone who got to the top a lot more suspicious because nobody pulled the sign off.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had that option.
Yeah, if Nimrod and Yan had realised that that sign had been stuck over the top, you pull it off for everyone else. You don't let the mole sabotage keep sabotaging. Or I wouldn't, if I wasn't the mole. So it makes them a lot more suspicious to me, the fact that neither of them did anything about it. So they eliminate chairs 3 and 5 before Alexi and Pedro are also tricked by the sign, followed shortly by Michelle. They find the control panel and eliminate 2, 1, and 8 respectively for another €600. Sarah gets left behind the stairwell and is tricked by the 37 sign, and time runs out as she, Rusiana, and Pass explore floor 36. And that means that they earn €1,000 of 2,000 for the challenge and €5,750 of 17,000 for the episode and season so far.
Did we ever work out why Rusiana was in the vent?
No, it's just a bit of B-roll.
Maybe there was a 37A floor.
Yeah, maybe. And they then head to the roof to find out that Yan, Sarah, Hilde, Michelle, and Pedro's chairs have been turned off and they've escaped execution, which means Rusiana, Alexi, Pass, Nimrod, and Elsa still at risk. Nimrod begins and gets a green screen, followed by Rusiana, Pass, and Alexi. Elsa's screen is also green, meaning that they're all through to episode 2, and perhaps more importantly, one of Yan, Sarah, Hilde, Michelle, and Pedro should have got a red screen. And the episode ends with another flashback to the suitcase decision, and the mole teasing that they have something special planned for the mission on a train.
Dun, dun, dun.
Quick question, Bindles. Are we counting that as an episode 1 cliffhanger?
No.
Obviously not. You're not getting that square fuzzy just to confirm it.
In your face!
We haven't colluded on this, but that's my instinct as well. That's not a cliffhanger.
No. Like, it's certainly interesting, but it's not a cliffhanger. It's just a preview for next week.
Exactly. So next time, there's a countdown on the train. Alexi whips with the towel, they visit the Dragon Tower, and Hilde pervs on Nimrod while he races a train on a bike.
I mean, fair.
And about 94 minutes later, we have gotten through episode 1.
Yeah, I'm very glad I'm off for it this week. So, before we get into suspicions, you can give us your first suspicions by going to the link in our social media or in the episode notes if you're listening during week 1. We will be keeping an eye on it all season. I want every year to try and break the record of how many people do first suspicions because it's fascinating to see who's going to win. And I'll say also, if it isn't fuzzy, that works perfectly for me. Something that means I know neither of you have done first suspicions yet is the fact that I have added a question to first suspicions this season, which is how confident are you from 0 to 100? And I know Fuzzy's not done it either, because she would have commented. And on the other bit of admin that we do, the pool will be officially announced in next week's recap. And as I won last year's pool, I will get first draft. And as Bindles was completely wrong, he will join the pool with last draft. We will alternate until each of us have 3 team members, and whoever is left over will join the team who loses someone next week. In the event that it's a double, then whoever gets the first red screen will inherit the person who is left over.
Okay.
And you can also do the Buzzwell Suspect List each week at the link in our bio or suspectlist.rtvwarriors.com. Please do it, it's very fun. This week's question is which container the mole was in, either dancing, touching noses, or arranging boxes. Final few questions. Who do we suspect? Who's going home? And do we think next week is going to be a double execution?
So I guess I'll go through my suspect list. I have Michelle first, then Sarah, then Pedro, then Rusiana, then Pasquino, then Alexi, then Hilde, then Yan, then Nimrod, then Else. I don't think it will be a double boot next round. I think they'll hold off on that for a couple more episodes because this is a really fun group. And I think Yan will be executed first.
I think it will be a double boot next week, but I also think Yen is going first. My suspects, I have no clue. So what I did was I sort of singled out the sort of two people that I'm kind of leaning towards at the top, and then the two people I can rule out for very stupid reasons at the bottom. And then sort of everybody else is just ranked in the middle in order from like most to least who I want to be the mole. So from top to bottom, Pedro, Michelle, Hilda, Nimrod, Else, Risiana, Alexi, Jan, and then Sarah and Pasquino, because I don't think I think that sign was held on. The sign was positioned like pretty accurately. I don't think you would have been able to do that either with like a busted thumb that you had to keep elevated or with one eye. Like I can't see either of those two sort of doing the sign that accurately if they were the mole.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of thinking about it, because I did think it was interesting that as soon as Sarah went through the stairs door, she took her sling off.
Hmm.
She didn't have her sling for the running up the stairs, which probably went against Doctor's orders, to be honest.
Yeah.
And my suspicions, annoyingly for everyone, were actually quite similar this season. It's Michelle, Hilda, Pass as my top three, and then Pedro, Sarah, Nimrod, Else, Rosianna, Alexi, and Jan. And I think it's going to be Alexi and or Jan who go next week with an outside bet of Rosianna. I think it's probably going to be one of my bottom three. I'm not sure if it'll be a double, but it depends, because if the mole's briefcase ends up making it a double execution, then that wouldn't necessarily surprise me. I really, 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 really want it to be Hilda, though. I'll be honest. I don't mind being wrong in week one if it's Hilda, because I just want us to have to meet her. I want us to have to talk to her. This is purely selfish on my part, but like, I do generally think about my suspicions as who do I want to meet, and the answer is Hilda. I just want us to become best friends with her. Anything else you guys want to say?
No, I'm good.
No, I think I'm good.
Good choice. In that case, thank you for listening to our Mol België Season 13 recap. We'll be back next week to continue the hunt for our newest mole in Thailand. Don't forget you can contact us on pretty much every social media platform that isn't TikTok, where we are RTV Warriors. You can email us and contact at rtvwarriors.com. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/rtvwarriors. And as I said, if you're listening before episode 2, please also take part in the suspect list and first suspicions at the link in our bio or in the show notes. Thank you, as always, to the Legion of Subtitlers. We'll see you next week.
Peace out and just chill till the next flavoring.
Kluntep Mahanakon Aman Ratanakasin Mahintaya Ayutaya Mahadalak Pop Napala Ratchatani Buluram Udam Rachanuet Mahasatan Amon Piman Awatan Sahi Sakata Tia Witsanukan Plasit Purple Monkey Dishwasher. Say these aren't all dick jokes.
Show off.